I think it's growingly becoming popular. And I think that here's the truth of it and the reality is I think people love the idea of being an entrepreneur and they like to put on their social medias and say I'm an entrepreneur. But I would say like maybe 15% of people are actually cut out to actually do what's required. The rest, and I've seen this firsthand, people that got these degrees just still went and got a job. And that doesn't make them a bad person by any means, but like I think that's diluted some of that space for the entrepreneur realm because it's used so much. Everyone says they're an entrepreneur, but like people like yourself and people watching this, there's a ton of people that are true entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And no shade against like if you're an entrepreneur, right? Like if you're someone that works in a company, like
those are key people.
Like we have actually in our company, like I'm 100% owner, but our leadership team is, entrepreneurs. They take ownership. They're building their own divisions. I was actually just thinking about that this morning at the gym. Like as we grow, obviously leadership, you have to create a path for leaders to grow within your organization. I'm thinking like we need to develop different divisions of contractor dynamics. So like these leaders have their own divisions to run within the company. Otherwise we could risk losing them because they want to,
they want to grow. An entrepreneur, and a lot of people don't even know what an entrepreneur is, but it is a vital asset to any company that's wanting to grow because it's essentially an entrepreneur who doesn't have to take the risk of the primary business owner, but has the latitude and the bandwidth and the thought process to function as an entrepreneur in the business. So it's essentially like the way I view an entrepreneur, a true entrepreneur. It's kind of like being like the Avengers and like you're one of the superheroes and then you have a whole bunch of superheroes with you, but you're all on the same team. And that's really how I view like entrepreneurs. So like they're superheroes on your superhero squad.
I love that. Yeah. So growing up the biz, obviously really tight with your dad, entrepreneurship degree. It wasn't until senior year when you realized you wanted to actually be in the business. Did you, because I grew up in my family's business as well as a 6th generation family member. And like growing up, I was like, all right, I want to do my own thing. I think there's this natural tendency to be like, all right, this thing's available to me, this family biz, but I'm my own person. I want to try my own thing, which I did before I joined a family business. And then I left the family business. So that's a whole other story. But what was that path like for you when you realized, oh, maybe I can really build a career here and a great life here?
I'll never forget. It was so I went to school for 5 years. I definitely made sure I enjoyed college. And I think it was like my 3rd year. So I was like a junior, somewhere in that range. And there was a storm that had hit Houston. And I remember calling my dad and I said, hey, there's a storm that hit. You should go out there and work it. And I remember distinctly on the phone call, he goes, well, Sam, it's just me and Jose. And Jose's been with us for almost 38 or 39 years now. He's one of our foremen.
Wow.
And I said on that phone call, I go, okay, well, what do I need to do then? And he goes, well, you just got to go out and knock on doors and see who's interested in having the roof done. Now, mind you, I came from seeing my dad retail. Right. Never had done insurance in my life. And as God is my witness, that following Monday, like 2 days later, I was in the fraternity meeting and I said, hey, does anyone want to go knock on doors with me? I'll pay you. It was $25 per roof you got me on. And it was like $10 an hour. And I had 2 or 3 guys say they would help. But go out to this neighborhood. I'd never seen hail damage in my entire life. I didn't know how to file a claim. I didn't know how adjuster meetings worked. And we just started knocking on doors. And we were probably like 2 weeks late to the storm, to put this in perspective. And there was a gentleman by the name of Sonny. That was his first name. And I want to say that Sonny gave me a pivotal piece that made me say, this is what I 100% want to do. And this is like a month later, but we ended up selling like 100 roofs or something. The first adjuster meeting I went on, I told the guy I didn't know what I was even doing, and he taught me what to look for. I think God worked in mysterious ways, and all the pieces really worked out. But there's a gentleman named Sonny, and I'll never forget, he said, I'm so happy I found your company, and y'all did such a great job, and I can't wait to keep referring you to my friends and family. In that moment, it was like a light bulb turned on in my head. And I was like, I can do honest work, taking care of people. They're going to refer me, and I can make an honest living for the rest of my life. And that's when I decided, okay, I want to do this. And then fast forward about a year later, it was my senior year, my real senior year. And I took my dad with me to the entrepreneurship program because I wanted to figure out how we could scale the business. Because at the time it was myself, him, and Jose, our foreman. And I wanted to figure out how we could both make enough money to where it made sense. Because at the time, based off what we were doing and the income that was being made, it wouldn't make sense for me to have work there.
Right.
And we sat down in my director's office, and his name was Ken Jones. super straightforward guy. I mean, the feelings were not a thing in that office, and I appreciate that and I respect that. And I remember sitting in there and we were showing him our P&Ls and, hey, this is how much money the company's making, yada, yada, yada. And I said, Ken, I just don't understand how I'm supposed to make money in this. And he said, you just got to go figure it out and you've got to grow the business. And the rest has been history. So I graduated, went to go work for Aspen Mark Roofing and Solar in Dallas under Chris Zazo to learn insurance and understand how the claims process worked. Came back to Houston, September. Dad's birthday, a couple months later, he has open heart surgery. And now I'm 100% running the business with very limited knowledge while he's in ICU for 3 or 4 weeks. And I'm thrown into the fire of like, okay, I've got to make sure this works and the company grows. And it's every year since then, other than 1 year, we've had at least a 35% growth year for the past 7 or 8 years in a row. It's been a journey for sure, but it wouldn't be possible without the people that have come and gone throughout the process and the people that have come and stayed with me to this day.
It was Frank, your dad, Jose, and you. And now, Fast forward to today, how many people do you have in the organization?
37 full-time people. And then we have our installation teams, which, there's probably a total of 70 to 80 installers.
So what's been, I mean, there's, we could spend 2 hours talking about like how that has happened, but like, what are the drivers to that growth? I mean, what happened?
I would say this, at first it was, how can I grow the business to a scalable size that makes sense to where my dad and I can have a great lifestyle and we can handle the volume of work within a reasonable amount. Like it wasn't like we're not working ourselves to death. We hire some people on to help us out, et cetera.
Yeah, you're going to the lake on the weekends. You're enjoying it. You're not, going crazy. Okay.
Exactly. So it got to that level, and then I started becoming addicted to growth. It became.
I know.
I'm serious.
I know.
It became
the feeling.
A high. It went from I want us to make good money to now. Well, I have all these good people working with me. I want to be able to give them career advancement and financial stability to where they can have a great career here and not worry about going to find another job to make more money, whatever it is. And that's what's been the push driver to like keep pushing me to the next level. It's like, okay, well, I have all these great people. Like, for example, my office manager, she's been with me for going on 7 years now. And she was the first hire I ever made from a staff perspective. And I remember interviewing her, and I remember being afraid if I could afford $17 an hour. I remember being afraid if I could afford that.
Been there, done that. Yeah.
And I was in a 600 square foot office, and my dad was in ICU, and I hired her because I needed the help, because I was running the office, I was running the appointments, I was then doing the paperwork, and I was working 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, nonstop. And I worked that way for almost 2 years.
You just described 90% of roofing companies in the United States.
Yeah, I believe it.
And they stay there, right? As you know.
I know.
So this is like a great pivotal point of the conversation. So go ahead.
For those of you that are listening that you might be in that boat, you can get out of that boat safely, but you have to take on some risk. And I remember making the decision, I need to hire someone to help me do the part that I'm not the best at. And that was, I'm great at sales. God's given me an incredible talent to be able to talk and do sales. And I can do phone stuff and I can do admin stuff, but that doesn't fill my tank. So I remember hiring her, and she's been with me to this day, and she's my office manager now. She's awesome. She is super woman for the company internally. And to answer your question, why we kept pushing this, I realized we could keep growing and people could get paid more and they could have better lifestyles, and we could service more clients with the same level of service we did when we were $1 million. And I haven't reached a point to where I feel like our quality's declined or our service has declined. So I felt comfortable to keep growing to the next level. The key thing though now is, we're such a large family, is making sure our culture stays in tune at all times. That's what's pushed the growth, is just this. I got a great sales manager. I got some great people that work here. I have a lot of great people that work here. But I have people that I want to know that they can be with me for as long as possible, and their potential isn't capped because of my vision. And that's become the most important thing to me.